Good morning, everybody. My presentation will probably be a little bit different than what you've seen so far because it's focused from the perspective of a water utility. So the outline that I have basically is just to present how we view things as the water utilities, and the second part of the presentation will be on how we view the mountain pine beetle impacts in terms of our drinking water quality. And what we're doing to some extent with Black Mountain and what utilities can do to manage these risks that are coming. And another thing that's happening is there's conflicting points of view with the legislation. Like Energy Mines and Resources can approve a gravel pit, and the approval goes ahead, and the Ministry of Environment has legislation that says you can't do that near the riparian area, and it gets done anyways. And we've got issues with the silos of the provincial government that we have to deal with as utilities that are challenging and need improvement, and we're working on it. But one of the concerns we have this year is a lot of the off-road activity. They closed a big mud bogging area in lower Kelowna Creek, and we have fears in our watershed that these guys in their trucks are going to come up into the watersheds and do the same thing that they did in the smaller areas in lower Kelowna Creek. So the water quality that we have to achieve as a utility has to meet what they call a 43210 protocol, and that was developed by Interior Health. It's a very good protocol in terms of inactivation of viruses. 4-log is 99.99% inactivation of viruses. And if you get that one, usually you get the bacteria as well if you kill the viruses. So then 3-log inactivation of the Cryptosporidium giardia, the protozoa, and those are the difficult ones to inactivate for the utility. Protecting the source water is key to everything. If that's messed up, the kinds of treatment that we can use to protect the water or protect the public from the risks becomes much more limited. There's certain kinds of things that can happen, like an algae toxin that comes through the water that a filtration plant won't protect you from. So there was, I think, 2 years ago, a do not touch the water notification in Quebec from an algae bloom. So there's things that can happen in our watersheds that we're very concerned of. The nutrients that may happen from mountain pine beetle, they can create increased algal growth, and that's of concern to us. So the aspects of multi-barrier approach, source protection, appropriate treatment, and then making sure the drinking water distribution system has adequate residual levels of disinfectant in it so you don't have regrowth occurring. Normal challenges that we see, waste contamination, that's the primary cause of most waterborne diseases. We've got biochemical risks. Turbidity in itself isn't a health risk, but it can compromise the disinfection, so it is of a concern, and it's an easily measurable parameter. So that's why it receives a lot of attention. You can have online turbidity meters on your systems, and it'll show the spikes in the creek. It'll show what time the highest runoff is occurring. Color is another concern because it's an indicator of organic levels and nutrients. The organic loading itself, and we're fortunate here, we have high elevation watersheds, and we have a lot lower chance of human contamination coming back at the systems, but it does occur from time to time. I'm showing this graph because this is a summary of the central Okanagan level of intestinal infectious diseases for a 12-year period, and it's from 1991 to December 2002, and the pink areas that you see, these bars that are going up that are pink, what they show is the freshet period where we have elevated turbidity levels. And you can see the spikes in sickness in the community don't really match up with that. So it gives us an indication that turbidity doesn't equal sickness, but there may be one or two in here on that whole 12-year period where there is a lag time where there may have been an outbreak. We don't know that for sure, but it's not a direct correlation. What there is the correlation is if there's waste with the turbidity. So with the impacts of mountain pine beetle, we have more sediment loading, and if it happens in the summertime when we got cattle up there, we've got a serious health risk. This here's a picture of our specific watershed that the MID relies upon. It's Upper Mission Creek. Right here is Dave's Creek and 8 Mile Ranch, where the switchback is on Highway 33. And above that, we've got a watershed that's 600 square kilometers in size. It's probably about 30% of the total water flow into Okanagan Lake. And we rely on, I don't think you can see it on this picture, but Belgo Reservoir is up here at about 4,500 feet. And then Loch Long is a ministry reservoir at about 6,000 feet. And then we have two others, Greystoke Reservoir and Fishhawk Reservoir, high up. And this high plateau in here is all above 6,000 feet. And you can see there's been a lot of logging in this area. So that's why the pine consideration, the amount of pine up there is not going to hit the Mission Creek watershed as high and as hard as some of the other watersheds in the area. This upper plateau has completely different characteristics than most of the watersheds in the Okanagan. What we've done is every year we send out our aquatic biologist. She measures all of the water quality parameters, and we're measuring a whole range of parameters here. Forest fire impact, the impact we consider to be serious or severe, and it's the biggest one that we can't control, I think, and where we're most exposed. So when I'm planning for mountain pine beetle, I'm in fact trying to do things that are also going to reduce the fire impact. The riparian area impact is also a huge concern because the sediment actually, the problems with the sediment is it creates a nutrient load to our systems, and that creates an algal bloom. Because available inorganic carbon restricts the algae community, an increase in nitrate or phosphate would not stimulate algae growth. This means disturbance in watershed from beetle kill harvest would not stimulate algae blooms to the degree that it would in BMID's mid-elevation reservoirs. And some of the testing we did the previous year proved that out. I've got a few different ideas for mitigative strategies. One is knowledge, having online equipment right at the intakes. So we're measuring all of these, turbidity, UV transmissivity, the total organic carbon, pH, and conductivity actually isn't on the list. We're measuring that online and getting a good baseline amount of data down before we see changes in some, it allows us to understand what's happening in our reservoir and in our watersheds on an annual basis. It changes from season to season because in the wintertime you'll have a frozen over watershed and there's a lot of groundwater influence in the water quality. Like the conductivity goes up, the pH goes up, turbidity will go down to, in Mission Creek, down as low as I think 0.2. Another thing we're doing is we've got plans to develop a very large offline storage reservoir right on the eastern limits of Kelowna, right offline from the creek. And in bringing in the clearest water and storing it there, I'll have in midsummer probably a month of storage. And this is a big project. It's part of our water quality improvement plans. Another thing is developing storage in certain locations in the watershed so that you can actually hold back bad quality water or poor quality water and release it at appropriate times and then run on your offline storage. Another thing that every utility should do is have a number of different sources of what they rely on for their source water. So it means developing groundwater, developing a lake source if the lake is there, having it from more than one creek if possible, more than one watershed if possible. So those kinds of things. And then also the demand management and reducing the amount that you use, especially in a problem time, you would go on drought restrictions if you had to hold or reduce the amount of water use in the community. Another thing is just if all else fails, you have to put in highest level of treatment possible. So another thing that Don touched on, we do have a fire management plan in place and we're working on it. We're going to be approaching the UBCM for funding, and it's also an interface fire protection plan as well. So one of the problems is there's no money in the forest industry right now in terms of doing defendable cut blocks. So we've got things to work on there. So here's a summary of the strategies. There's a lot out there. Every watershed's different, and it's always work in progress for us. So I think I'm on time, and I think that's it. So thank you.